It's a cool feeling, like when you've made like shitty art after shitty art, and then one of them turns out and you're like, I drew that. Like, oh my God.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Jesse Nyberg podcast. Today we're here with Ben, Boring Friends on Instagram and his website and all that. He's a talented designer from Canada and is doing a bunch of cool stuff online. How you doing, man?
Good, buddy. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Nice little week so far for me. How have you been?
Also, like, pretty nice little week. I was in New York from like Thursday to Monday, so otherwise it's just been catching up over here. It's a little like gloomy and gross today, but
yeah,
still warm. We're like clinging to the warmth until the winter comes up this way.
Yeah, it's feeling nice over here now. The last like 2 weeks though, we had like that crazy heat wave in California, and it was like over 100 every day, and my AC broke, and I was just sitting there like in hell. That's
insane. I wouldn't be able to cope with that at all.
Do you go to you said you're in New York, do you go to like the States often?
Like a decent amount. I mean, New York from Toronto is like a 1 hour and like 10-minute flight. Like, it's pretty quick to get down there. I mean, I was down there for a couple months this summer just to sort of like dip my toe in and see if maybe I want to do a longer term thing. But I drove down because I had like all my stuff and I had my dog and everything. And that's far. That's a lot farther than driving. That's a gigantic pain in the ass. So flying, it turns out, is the way.
Is so Toronto, in terms of Canada, it's more on like the east coast of like the States?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's pretty much just like a little bit northwest of New York, I suppose. Like we're just like, we're right north of Buffalo. Like we're right around the corner from it, basically. It's like I think it's under 2 hours to drive from here to Buffalo.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, like we were talking about before, I've chatted with you online a bit and stuff, and like we've, here and there talked on Instagram and stuff, but I was curious if you could just give me a little bit of background on you, like as a designer, because I know what all the stuff you're kind of doing on social media and stuff, but kind of want to hear how you got into like art and design in the first place.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I get like, technically I took some of that type of stuff in school. Like I went to university 1,000 years ago for this program that was kind of like, it was kind of all encompassing for like everything media and tech. It was called like Information Technology in Interactive Multimedia and Design, which is like a mouthful I've had to navigate 6,000 times in my life, but it was kind of everything. So there was like a bit of graphic design, bit of illustration, but then it also had like math and physics and business and game design and 3D, and like it just kind of, it touched on a little bit of everything, but then you never really specialized or came away with it with like a specialized knowledge of any one thing. So it got me like ultra familiar with working with every different type of like software and technology and calculus formulas that I'll never use again in my life. But it gave me a grasp on sort of what it was like to get into sort of like the sort of media focused tech world. Right. And then came out of that and freelanced for like, I think the better part of a year when I was done, but I was like unbelievably not well equipped to like be in the job force. So that was like, that was like probably the poorest year of my entire life, but learned a lot, I suppose. Then started, like this was back, so I've been in Toronto for like 8.5 years. This is back when I lived in Ottawa, which is like about 5 hours away from here, and worked at this like small company that did like, they did a mix of like, one side of the business was they would take people's DNA and then like blow it up into these like huge art prints. You probably like see, they were like everywhere for a hot minute, like 10 years ago or something. So I worked for them, and in the same business, you could also like send in your photos and stuff to get like stuff printed on canvas. I started there, and like the first 50% of my day was graphic design stuff and like editing photos. And then the second, like it was still like a 7-person company then. So the second half of my day was literally like creating boxes to like ship orders in, like just like cutting boxes and like taping them together and stuff, which was not the dream, but it was like my foot in the door, and better than having no job and no money, which is what I was doing for a year before that. So that was cool, and I learned a lot at that place. And then I think I worked there for like the better part of a year, and then ended up taking a job at Shopify. And then I worked there for I always forget whether it was like 7 or 8 years. I think it was 8 years. Like it was long time. And that was back when like, so they started in Ottawa and it was like a 50-person company when I started.
Okay.
And now it's like a behemoth, and it's like absolutely everywhere.
So you're there when it was like pretty small?
Real small. Like just like,
okay.
like I think pretty much the entire team was in Ottawa at that point. We had like a couple people in Toronto, a couple of people in like Winnipeg or something. And now they're, I don't know, I think like 10,000 people work for Shopify or something. It's insane.
Damn.
But yes, like when I started there, I actually got in as like doing like front end dev kind of work, like with the support team.
Okay.
So I did that for a few years, but I was always kind of like, I don't know, like I could code, it was like interesting and like a challenge, but I was also kind of surrounded by people who were like really into code, like people who actually gave a shit about code and like went home and learned new, whatever, like JavaScript libraries and all that stuff, which like all the power to them, but like I'm going to go home and, make some art or watch TV or do whatever. So I think I just kept being drawn more and more to wanting to like create stuff and be able to express. And like, that wasn't really a role that did it for me. So I kind of slowly made my way over to the design team little by little. So after the first few years, I went over to the design team. My first role there was on their, they call it like the IRL team at the time. So it was a lot of like printed stuff for all sorts of events. So I do a lot of collateral for like conferences or any events we'd have in the office or otherwise, or pamphlets or all that kind of thing. And then eventually transferred into doing more like marketing UX type of work. Every so often they would sort of like, we had a designated like illustration team at the company. And every so often I would get away with like getting to do that stuff on my own and not having to kind of run it by them or do it with their permission or whatever. But that was also back in the day where like I wasn't drawing anything by hand and I basically couldn't draw. So this would just be stuff that I'd be able to like whip up in Illustrator or whatever. But yeah, so I left like I think exactly like 3 years ago. So like the fall right before COVID, I left to just kind of see what was out there. And so, it's been a bit of a wild journey ever since. I mean, like leaving a long time job to go freelance like a few months before a pandemic is like a really interesting way to see what's out there and to get started with things. So a lot of ups and downs, but definitely didn't end up in a place where I expected to. Like I think when I left, I kind of figured like, I'll do the sort of marketing UX stuff that I was doing at Shopify because that's the stuff that'll pay the bills and where I have contacts and whatever. And then this boring friend stuff, which was like completely in its infancy at the time, that'll be something that I have fun with, and I'll keep making some t-shirts or mugs and I'll just sort of like see where it goes from there. But it kind of ended up being, whatever the complete opposite of that would be. I don't touch any UX stuff at all anymore. And it's just become 100% boring friends. So it's been cool.
It's crazy. It's crazy to hear. Cause like looking at just you at face value or whatever online and what you're about, you wouldn't really imagine you have such a heavy like tech or like UI UX background, considering like your stuff's so illustrative and like iPad heavy. When did you get like, since you had all that tech and like coding background, when did you really start getting into the more like art based stuff?
I mean, I think I always, even when I joined the job in order to, be in the company and I was coding and stuff, I still like, secretly under the radar wanted to be like creating and designing stuff.
Okay.
Like I said, back then I couldn't really draw or anything like that, but I still liked making graphics, and I still liked, like, I couldn't draw by hand, but I could do a lot of stuff in Illustrator, like anything that is just a matter of building shapes out of other shapes and coloring them and texturing them or whatever. So I would, find stuff on Dribble that I really liked and see if I could find a way to make it on my own or do tutorials or whatever. But getting more into like the hand drawn stuff was like, I've really only been drawing for like not even 5 years now. Like that's almost like, that's sort of the newest aspect of all this stuff to me, where I just kind of always spent my time assuming that I was one of the people who was born not able to draw, and everyone who can draw was just born that way. And so what am I going to do about it? But eventually just decided to like, once again, try and teach myself to draw, but like actually stick to it that time. And then it kind of stuck. Like, I mean, I think when I originally started doing it, I was like, I just want to be able to draw like a convincing enough stick figure to like make this fart joke land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it really was like pretty loose and pretty, like, didn't really think much about it. And like, even the name Boring Friends was like, I remember I was like sitting in a coffee shop and I was like, I'll make an Instagram for all this like stuff that I'm like messing around with. And then Boring Friends just popped into my head, and it's just stuck. Like, that people ask me like, oh, what's the subtle meaning behind the name? I was like, literally, that's like a brain fart about my brain farts. Like, that's kind of it. There's not a whole lot else thinking behind it, but it seems to work.
What'd you do to kind of, you know, hone in on this style or like get better at drawing? Was there any specific types of things you did like each day, or like exercises or anything?
I had a pretty good, especially when I was like starting to draw and like starting to really learn the fundamentals, I was being pretty good for a while about like really trying to draw every single day, like just a matter of like sitting down and like picking something in my place and just being like, today I'm going to draw my camera from scratch or something like that. And it'll take me like an hour, or I'll try it like 100 times, but I'll draw that, or I'll try and draw like a room or whatever. It's kind of fun when you're in that stage of like learning to draw and make art, because like you're already like at the floor. Like you don't care. Like even right now, if you like draw this entire room, I'd be like I would like agonize over getting the perspective right. And like if it looked, it would definitely look like shit if I tried to do it. But like if I tried to do it, you know, I would like drag my feet and I would worry that it didn't turn out well or whatever. But like back in that phase of learning to draw, you just like, you're like, I'll just try it, because like I have no idea how that's going to turn out. I don't know what it takes to do that kind of thing. So yeah, I was pretty good about doing like a daily thing for a while, just to get the fundamentals down, or like even just any of the like sort of drawing exercises out of any of the books I was reading or courses I was messing around with. I did like a quick like beginner drawing course, I think like summer, like maybe 4 years ago here, just to like sort of learn some fundamentals. And they would do like, you know, learning fundamentals and like figure drawing a couple times, and stuff like that was pretty cool, just to like actually see how other people do it and to get a bit of like hands-on instruction. But I guess like formally, that's probably really the only education I've had as far as the drawing stuff is concerned.
Right. Is that kind of why you advocate online for like, you always say things like make shitty art or whatever, or like just do stuff? Because I also agree like with the statement, you know, that like done is better than perfect. I feel like people get so wrapped up with like, the better you get, the higher you raise your ceiling for like what's good. And then it ends up, that's I think when the creative block and things like that kind of comes into play.
Totally. I mean, I think it plagues people, both new and like veterans, to doing this kind of art, right? Where it's like, if you're new, you're worried about making shitty art because like, you know, you're always going to be shitty at making art. And so you keep reinforcing this notion, being like, look, I made shitty art again. It's always going to be this way or whatever. But, you know, once you're on your 7th or 8th try of drawing something, you start to like see a little glimmer of something that's there. And then it's a cool feeling, like when you've made like shitty art after shitty art, and then one of them turns out and you're like, I drew that, like, oh my God. And it takes a minute, and like it was like a lot of trial and error before I had those moments. But like even now, every so often, just because drawing is like still a newer thing to me, like I'll back up and be like, okay, yeah, cool. Like I don't know where that came from, I don't know how to like tap into it again, but I'm cool that like I'm happy that it's in there somewhere.
Right.
But then like you're saying, like it also sort of plagues people who've been into it for a while too. And kind of like I was saying before, where it's like, you know, if I wanted to just draw this room or something like that, like I don't have that same comfort now to just sit back and like do a shitty drawing just because. I will do it, especially because like I advocate for it and I try to, you know, walk the walk a little bit. But like I have to almost kind of like actively give myself permission to be like, it's cool, man. Like everyone, no one's going to know that you did this. Like we're not going to tell anyone. We're not going to let anyone know. You're still going to like get jobs if you make this really bad drawing to yourself that only your pets saw or something like that. But yeah, it's the type of thing that sticks with people, right? Like people are afraid to be bad at something, even though often like the stakes are tremendously low.
Yeah, I always talk about that, especially like with people like these younger designers online, I feel like they're so worried about being good right away that they fall into like these trends or like try to do something that they know will do well. Like there's a fly in here on like the platform or whatever, that they don't give themselves like the luxury or like right to fail and like just make bad shit because they think like, oh, I already have to be like this cool person online and like make cool shit.
I think what they miss in that sort of like self-comparison that they do is like the fact that the people whose work they're trying to like mimic or idolize, like all the people who are getting to those levels, like all that is a product of them fucking it up 100 times in a row and then trying something new and then like pulling all these different influences in to see what they can or can't draw or what feels good or what doesn't feel good, right? So if you just try to like cut to copying someone else's work, or not even copying but just like hopping on trends rather than just sort of like coming to stuff on your own, then like, I mean, it'll be like pretty obvious when that comes out and when you're showing it to people or people who are like at least in the know about certain designs and that stuff, and B, like it's just not as satisfying. Like, it doesn't feel as you know what I mean?
Yeah, because when you do something that's like your own and you fail, it sucks, but when you do something and you're copying it and it works out well, it feels kind of good. But if you copy and it doesn't work out well,
it's like, in there somewhere when it's like it's someone else's and it does well, you're like, this is cool, but like it's missing something.
I found too with myself that I always felt like I didn't really have like a style or whatever, and I wanted to kind of be more consistent in like just the visual thread through my work, and then I kind of stopped caring about that, and it found kind of in its own way like a somewhat of a style. But now that I feel like there's something to be expected from what I do, that I find it harder to do like the trying out shit and failing, because there's like a level of like quality that I guess I put on like the audience that they're used to or something like that. You ever feel that way?
I'm sure it's kind of like, you know, because you're really great at like making posters and working with type and stuff like that. And if you woke up today and you're like, I'm just gonna draw like portraits, you know, like I'm gonna like grab like a pencil and I'm gonna draw portraits all day. You know what I mean? Like it's tough to get motivated if it's something that's like not typically in your skill set. Like just because you're an artist doesn't mean like you're going to be able to jump right into any one thing. But yeah, I totally get also like the aversion to just trying new stuff. Like again, like when I was starting out with this stuff, it really was just a matter of like taking all my shit and just throwing it at the wall and like seeing what sticks and what feels good. But like when you're at this level and you've like you know, developed a more cohesive style and people expect a certain thing from you, then like there is a pressure to sort of continue posting that. But like again, that's just like some bullshit that like Instagram has trained us to feel, where it's like, oh yeah, like you want to try that type of art today? Well, what about likes? What are you going to do without the likes? Like that'll ruin your day, man.
It's weird because I feel like I go like every day or every once like week or whatever, I go between this feeling of like, do whatever you want, like post whatever on social media, like none of it matters. And then like a few minutes later, I think the same thing, like, well, what if someone like a client sees something that's like bad or something, or like something they don't like, then they're not going to want to hire me. Like, it's just like every day, just like this shitty duality of like social media is really important and it's also like the least important thing.
Oh man, like yeah, I'm the same. I'm so two ways about social media just in general, because like I really do think on a deep level it's like rewiring and fucking up our brains that in ways that like I think are like probably, you know, measurably bad for like society and the earth. But then at the same time, it's like if you're an artist, it's kind of the only game in town in terms of like getting your work out there and getting noticed, especially these days. And like, you know, it is a way of like bringing people together, like introducing you to people you wouldn't have otherwise met. Like pretty low odds that you and I would be like here talking right now if it weren't for like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, or like other artists who I've like met up with or spoken to, or jobs I've gotten. Like it's been really good for that stuff. But like, yeah, like I definitely get that feeling of like making stuff and really trying to to stick to the thing in my mind where I'm like, I'm going to make this, like, regardless of, you know, how I think it's going to come through or what the reception is going to be or how many people are going to share it or whether people will want it on a print or a shirt or whatever. I'm just going to make it because it like feels good to express myself in that way. But then like, I don't know, you're sitting there drawing and like halfway through, you're like, well, you know, you're thinking in advance about like, once you finally get to post it. And like, because you're kind of daydreaming about like how good it's going to be or how people are going to think about it. And then, you know, there's the other side of your mind being like, shut up, man. Like, who actually cares? Like it means so little at the end of the day. And like, even if you post like a real fucking turd on Instagram, like it's not going to affect anything in terms of like your following or your job prospects or anything along those lines. Like it's really just like, it's the internet, it's social media. Like people are going to forget in 11 seconds. So just like post those turds, you know?
It's interesting too, because it kind of like social media kind of tricks your brain a little bit and like what you want to create too, because the stuff that performs the best like isn't directly parallel with like your best art or like your best creation. No. It's all about stuff that's like shareable, quick to consume, but like with that kind of like quick to forget also, like just kind of just stuff that like people like things that they can be like, look at this is kind of cool. If it's like really complicated, I feel like that's why a lot of people that make like beautiful complex work, they don't necessarily perform well because it's good, so it's harder to understand. You actually have to like sit there and look at it a little bit longer.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, like sometimes, you know, even now I'll do drawings where like I'll step back and be like, holy shit, like I feel like I've, you know, maybe leveled up a little bit, or like this is like something I hadn't been able to do before, and I feel like impressed with it and it feels like one of the best things I've ever done. But like the correlation between like whether it was like either like impactful or like technically really well done and really well put together, and whether it will perform well on Instagram, like there's nothing there whatsoever. I could make like, you know, this huge poster, like super intricate and super detailed, and it takes me, you know, the better part of 6 months, and I post it, and it's gonna, I guarantee that would post, or that it would perform, you know, a quarter as well as some of the other stuff that I post, just for the sake of it not being like, you know, people are a lot more inclined to share something that kind of like has an opinion or represents them, or something that they find to be like true. And, you know, something like a big technical piece of art where you have to kind of like interpret it and take what you will from it. Like people might think it's like a really nice piece of art, but they're not necessarily going to like repost it or share it. And like, I hate that it's like that calculation in my brain sometimes when I'm making this stuff, because I really don't want it to be about any of that. So I feel like when I do make something that has like a very like explicit message about it and is like very to the point, or like where I'm literally saying like, you know, make shitty art, like down to like 3 very concise words, I at least try to keep it to stuff that is like, you know, positive and that I believe in, and like stuff that I like want to express regardless, and not just something that where I'm being like, you know, I saw 6 people make really successful posts that say, you know, mental health or like something like that. Just like really surface level stuff like that. I try to stay away from. Like I try to like at least have some thought and process behind it, and being like what is it that's either like bothering me or on my mind, or something I wish I'd known when I was starting, or something I need to hear myself today, or something along those lines. So if I am going to cheat the Instagram system and post like an obvious message, then I at least want it to have like impact and to come from like a place of truth, and not just a place of like, you know, how well can this perform? Right.
Cause like you see some and it'll be like, you know, like an infographic or something, and it's like racism's bad. And it's like, okay, like, of course, man. Like
repost. I'll share it.
And then people, I feel like look at it and they're like, am I bad if I don't like also repost this type of thing?
Or it just reinforces something that, you know, they already felt or something that they've already expressed from reposting, you know, a bunch of like pictures of tweets or like whatever. Not to say that like it's important to like get a lot of these messages out, but I feel like sometimes when people are making this type of art, you know, social media has trained us to like make this thing from a place of like what will suck the most people into seeing this, and not, you know, what do I actually care most about?
Right. Do you what kind of got you, I guess, inspired through like this Boring Friends journey to dive more into the like I guess, content stuff and like posting the short form videos and things like that?
I think it was like, honestly, yeah, because like if you were to look at my account, like call it like a year and a half ago, like maybe like spring before last, like there wouldn't, I don't think there was a single video on it. There'd be a bunch of like probably time lapses that I export from my iPad from like when I draw something, just like literally post it right to there.
I used to do that
like,
too.
Yeah, like, and I thought they looked fucking super cool, and like some people love to watch those processes and stuff. Yeah, but that was like the extent of any video work that I was doing. But yeah, I was like, I think probably a year and a half ago is when it started, like Instagram started to shift more towards like video and reels and really giving it more emphasis in terms of that kind of content. And I actually, like, I remember I was talking to my sister, 'cause my sister's been like slaying this social media game for like 4 or 5 years now. Like she does calligraphy. Shout out Happy Ever Crafter on on Instagram. Like half the internet follows her at this point anyways. But I remember talking to her about it and just how, like, you know, I post stuff, but not that many people see it and whatever. And she's like, oh no, like you have to do video now. Like it's video, like video is the thing that'll get attention and that'll whatever. And I was pretty reluctant to it for a while. Like I'm not naturally a person like who naturally feels good about like talking on camera, especially like the sort of like this is a conversation. This is nice and easy and like, you know, we can bounce stuff off each other, but like being some fucking guy walking down the street, like holding my camera like this and talking about my breakfast or my afternoon or whatever was like not at all my thing, which is what I pictured when she was talking about that kind of stuff. But I think I just like, I made a few reels and like didn't think about them too much. Like I just kind of like, I learned how they worked quick enough where you can just sort of like, cut all your clips together. So I would just show like a bit of a process of like sketching stuff. I think at the start I was also, you know, probably out of like self-protection. I was just trying to make them all like funny and not like too earnest and just trying to like goof around and then
hide behind the irony of it.
Yeah, which was like, I mean, we can talk about the start of Boring Friends and all of that side of it too. But like, but yeah, a lot of it was just sort of like, just to see how they would do. Like I had no idea how they would perform. And then like, I don't know, like second or third one, I was like, okay, like 6 times as many people saw this than I have followers, you know? And then, you know, something kind of clicked. And even when I was younger, I used to do a bunch of video stuff for fun. Like we would have like, I always like messing around with like camcorders and stitching stuff together and filming stuff or whatever. So I feel like making the reels just kind of like scratched an itch that I forgot was like somewhere in my brain. So every so often I would just like get an idea and just kind of run with it and post it and see where it goes. So ever since then, I think her other sort of piece of advice was like if you were to look at my account like a year and a half ago, like you wouldn't see my face on it at all. Like you wouldn't really see much of who I am or what I'm doing at all. Like I think like the advice was essentially to like bring a bit more of like, not necessarily just behind the scenes, but a little bit more of like the authenticity of like, here's who I am and here's what I'm doing and here's why I'm making it. And you know, every few days be like, here's my dog or whatever.
Right.
But I
surprising
think
how much people care about like you wouldn't think, but they actually do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of what my attitude was previously, where I was just kind of like, you know, I'll make some art. It'll speak for itself. You know, like this isn't about me. I'm not here to be like a influencer or to do anything like that. I just want to like make art and have people like it just for the art. But I think people, as soon as they see like where you're coming from and why you're doing it and how you got there, I think it's a mix of either like really relating to that kind of thing and relating to your journey and wanting to learn more about it, or, you know, maybe they're at a point where they're just starting, or they're at a point where they like need some advice or some direction, and it helps them to see what it's like to have moved a little bit farther along in the journey, right? It gives them some ideas, and like, you know, they can also see that most of the time here I'm just like farting around, and that like I think I try to emphasize with a lot of it too, between the art or the reels or whatever, where I'm just like, I'm still figuring it out. Like a lot of this is just me flying by the seat of my pants and like seeing what comes next and just trying to stay afloat.
That's how I feel like with the stuff that I do. Like sometimes I get worried that I maybe could come off too much like I'm speaking from a matter of fact and like this is the way to do it and this is how it works. But it's not necessarily that I deep down believe like I know everything, but like you have to at least somewhat come from a place of confidence. You can't be like, I think maybe like this is kind of how you should do it, because then it doesn't feel like you're even giving proper like advice or like
yeah.
whatever.
And I mean, I think people want to feel like they're getting good advice, or that or it's at least like advice rooted in like some experience or some learning or knowledge or whatever. But you can still couple that with being like, but I could be wrong. You know, like I think a lot of the sort of attitude that I give with my stuff is essentially like, here's how I did it. Who fucking knows if it'll work for you? Like, here's how I got here, mostly by accident. Could work for you too.
Yeah, that's like, I always find myself, I'll be recording like a YouTube video or something, and I'll give this like long-winded opinion on something, and it's always like, but I don't know, you know, or like, well, but that's just what I think, and it's like, okay,
that's
well,
the
you
little
just
like
told me.
asterisk you're putting at the end of it, being like don't research this.
Don't exactly.
Don't fact check me on this.
For real. I wanted to ask you, like, considering what we talked about and you kind of pivoting in that way because of your sister's advice and everything, do you think that it's like, do you feel like it just works for you, or it's like an actual necessary thing in the scope of like growing a, I guess, social media or like business presence?
Like, do you mean in terms of like specific to like reels and video content, or specific to like more of an authenticity, showing yourself kind of approach?
I guess specific to making video, and I guess maybe putting yourself out there more. Do you think those two things combined is like very important in getting like just more like revenue, I guess, or business or whatever?
I mean, it's tough, right? Like, do I think that is important in order to like be a good artist and to like make cool shit and be successful? Like, no, I 100% don't. But like, I also wish that the reality wasn't that like Instagram probably isn't going to like pump your shit that much if you're just a person who's like brand new on there posting like static content, you know? And that's like the frustrating reality of what they've done with like the platform and what you kind of have to do in order to get some attention on it these days. Cause like, man, like think of how many artists who are like incredible illustrators or graphic designers or whatever, who like either are terrible at making videos or like understandably can't be fucked to like even bother, right? Like they just can't bother, you know, learning how to put reels together, like what would make an interesting reel. You know, a lot of stuff that you see on your reels when you're like scrolling through on Instagram too is like, if I weren't making them already, I think my impression would be like very different of what it would take in order to like make something that's like successful. Like, now I'm lucky that, you know, I think I make stuff where it's just like, you know, it's just my process videos for the most part. Every so often I'll be like a tip or like some funny thing that I come up with. But the stuff that it feeds you most of the time, it's like, you know, like I'm just seeing like someone's clips of their trip to like, you know, Brussels or some shit with like a nice filter on it, or like someone's outfit of the day or something along those lines. And, you know, if I were a graphic designer new to that stuff, I'd be like, why the hell would I take part in like any of this? That makes no sense. But like, yeah, the reality is like, if you want to use that platform to get your name out, and like that platform all of a sudden is saying like, we're going to give all of this emphasis and priority to video content, like that's kind of the reality of it. The other side though, is like, I would 100% say like add authenticity into it no matter what. Like that's always going to be helpful. And I think that's always going to be good. Like, it doesn't all have to be like every post has a picture of your face and then the art or something like that. But every so often, if you're just like, here's who I am, here's what it's like for me making this art, or why I made it, and like, here's my day-to-day or whatever, even just in like little snapshots and whatever, it just helps resonate with people and helps people relate.
I always say like, you 100% don't have to do any of that, but like, don't every day be like the algorithm, like I'm shadow banned, or like just complain about like the apps, because you know why it's that and you're not doing it, and that's fine. But don't act like you're like, what's going on? Like, why is this not working?
And I mean, you're like, even once you start doing that type of content, like the frustrations don't end there, right? Like, I'm sure it's the same for you and me and for a lot of people who have like established followings and stuff, where it's like, you know, some days you post a story and like, you know, a huge chunk of people who follow you who would want to see it get to see it.
Yeah, it's so
and
weird.
Then some days you post shit and like, you know, like I got like like quite a few followers on my thing now. And some days I'll post a story and it'll be like, well, we showed 350 people. I'm like,
yeah,
sick.
It's crazy.
I posted the same thing to my personal account with 1,000 followers and it showed 600. So like, there's just no
I know
fucking rhyme or
stories
reason to it.
especially are weird. Like I've posted a picture of like, I've noticed I think they perform better if they're taken like natively, like in the app. Like I've taken a photo of literally like a kombucha or something I'm drinking and it's like, oh sick, like 5,000 people saw this, you know, like thanks for like, now they know what flavor I like or whatever. And then I'm like, yo, there's a new video and it's like 350, 500. And I'm like, man. Oh, that's pretty like, crazy.
I don't know if I ever post something in my stories that is like that I take it in the app. Like it's always like I'll take it like with the camera, post it later, or take it on a different camera, work on it on the computer, then post it.
Try it.
I'll give it a shot. Like I don't have any kombucha, but I could get some.
That's why I'm always like, yo, like I made a new video. Like I'll take a picture of myself too. Cause I'm like anything that could, cause like at the end of the day, like the way I look at all this like content stuff is it's just like it's not the thing I want to be doing, but it's like the vehicle to like the stuff I actually like. Even like YouTube and the podcast, like that's still content as well, but I'm a lot more proud and invested in that than like reels or something. So I try to use those to like get people there. I'm like, really, I want you over here. I don't care about Instagram that much anymore.
Yeah. 100%. Like, I think mentally I try to always just approach it as like a means to an end in terms of like, this gets, you know, engagement consistent on my account. And when there's consistent engagement there, then I get more people seeing my stuff. More people seeing my stuff means more clients or like more orders in my shop. Yeah. And so, you know, that's just like the necessary evil of doing it. But I'll have days too where it's like I spent like 3 or 4 hours on a reel and then I posted it. And then like even before I know if like people are going to like it or if it's going to resonate or whatever, I'll just sit back and be like, why the fuck did I do that? Like, what is the actual point of the thing I just did? Like no one's paying me to do it. I'm not really going to get anything out of it. Like there's some, you know, slot machine chance of like, I'll pull the lever and it'll be like, you get, you know, 500,000 views on this thing just because that's where the algorithm's at today or something. So like maybe it's for that, but again, like, you know, they just gamify the whole thing, right? Like the reason it works on us is because like, I feel like even if I got like a million views on every single video I did, I bet I would do 10 times fewer videos. You know what I mean? Like, I think like as soon as your brain gets this like inconsistent reward. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, I'm going to butcher like whatever the story is, but I think it's like when they give like rats, I think it's like cocaine or when they give them a treat or something. I don't think it has to be cocaine, but probably if they gave them cocaine, it's like if the rat like pushes a button and gets the cocaine or grape every time, then like eventually like it doesn't work as well as like teaching the rat that like at some intermittent but like unpredictable pace you'll be given the reward, and it becomes like way more hooked on the intermittent like unpredictable one than it would the one that gets it like consistently. And like that's fully what they're playing into with this stuff and with TikTok and whatever, because like if they gave it to you every time then you wouldn't be doing it as much as you would.
Right. I feel what you said too, like a little bit ago, where it doesn't, what was it, like the problems or whatever don't end with like doing it and it working like a few times, because I've noticed even doing reels, like it only like makes your account want more reels. Like just because I'll have like a reel, you get like hundreds of thousands of views, like super cool, but like it'll get way more likes than like any design I ever post static, even after that, the fact that I've like, those people are just people that want more video. So it's like, it's just another cycle of that it's creating.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, I think that's why, like, end of the day, I like to at least keep the stuff that I am putting out there. Like, for the most part, I try to make it be like, here's how I do this thing. Like, here's like maybe something that can help you get started with this thing. So at least if a lot of people see it, then they get something out of it, or at least like it's like an opinion that I think is like important or whatever. I mean, like once in every 12, I'll just have like some dumb idea that I wanted to like see how it would turn out, and like, sure, I'll go nuts. But I think for the most part, it's less me trying to hop on some like audio clip trend on it, or like some whatever video trend or whatever it is that people are like, I don't really jump onto those too much. Like I never really feel all that tempted to, like, I just don't think it's in line with what I want to be doing on here. And like, I think that's a shortcut for a lot of people to get a lot of views on their stuff, but it also means that I'm going to make stuff that, like, you know, doesn't really resonate with how I feel about things and doesn't resonate with like the message that I want to be putting out there. So I just kind of don't bother.
Also, like, planning like my freelance work and stuff I post online and videos, like actually like with time management and like scheduling. So like if I were to do that, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to post this trend in like a few weeks on like a Friday. And it's like, then I'm just that guy that's like, remember this, like this meme or whatever. And it's like already like too old, you know, or something.
Gone. I'm like, I'm bad with that stuff too, because I'll get really fixated on making this type of stuff. Like it kind of applies to like anything that I'm working on, where it's like, it's either I don't have an idea for something and I'm like stressed out about not having it. And then I just keep on not having an idea because I don't have an idea or whatever. Or I have an idea that I'm like, that I think is going to be really good. And I'm like fixated and like, I won't eat that day until like I've finished that drawing. Or like, or like I won't get out of my chair until like whatever this like reel is done, or like, you know, some new product that I want to make is like finished and sent off to the printer or something like that. Like it's really like one or the other with me. It's very rarely like I can almost never be like, okay, I'm going to spend a week making this piece of art. Like I can't do it. Like most like rational people will be like, I'm going to work on this for 45 minutes a day for a week, and I'm going to work. Right. Instead, I'm going to do 7 times 45 minutes all in one sitting and like ignore every other responsibility that day.
I'm the same way. Like outside of client work, I think maybe that also informs like the stuff I make, because it can only be made in a certain amount of time. Like I've never spent more than 1 or maybe 2 max sittings on a piece of design that's not for someone else. Like if it's for me, I do it and it takes me an hour or 4 hours or 6 or 30 minutes, whatever. But like, unless like it's an idea that I just completely scrap, I'm not going to like stop and then come back and then work on it again later.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way. It happens sometimes, or either just by like some sort of time constraint, or like when I started it or when I had to do it, that I'll have to revisit it. But I mean, I could probably point to some things where like I spent like 2 or 3 days on it instead of like, you know, all in one go, and like it's probably better. Like it would probably be like way cooler for me overall if I could spread this stuff out. But like often my brain just like will not work that way.
Right. I think that's what I really like about, like considering I don't like necessarily making like the reels and stuff we were talking about, but I do genuinely enjoy like YouTube and longer form content. I think that doing that was surprisingly like not only this own like side thing, but actually good for me as a designer, because it allowed me to do something completely different. Like editing a video is like a lot more steps and like takes me longer because I'm not as good at it as like creating a piece of design. It as well,
right? Like if you're making a piece of art or something, like a lot of that you're just doing it on the fly, right? Like you're literally like exploring the ideas and like kind of like building the plane as it flies through the air kind of thing. Whereas like with a video, like you got to figure out how you're going to structure that thing and what you need to shoot and like how you're going to stitch it together and like, you know, what the, you know, the lesson plan is essentially for that thing. So you're kind of forced to break it down into chunks.
Yeah. Cause, how like I try to portray myself like authentic and pretty like casual or whatever in my demeanor and stuff. But behind the scenes, like outside of podcasts, these are like on the fly. It's not like I'm giving you like these organized like list of notes or whatever, but for videos, like I'm writing down like the idea, I'm scripting like the notes, then I'm trying to recite it in a non like reading way. And then I'm also having to find like the B-roll or shoot B-roll and then edit it. And then the hardest part, which I didn't realize until probably the last 6 months, is none of that matters if the packaging isn't good. The most important part of social media is the packaging. Like if the thumbnail and the title are bad, it could teach you how to make $1 million, but no one's going to watch it if the title's boring.
Man, I mean, that's like, I mean, that's the most social media approach to anything, right? It's just like, it's really just about the surface level stuff that grabs people's attention, and like whether they actually watch it all the way through is like irrelevant to some people.
Yeah, you have to, social media has really taught me to give up my like pride in like being cool or whatever, and at least somewhat pandering to the like what works and being like, here, like this is like how to do something this awesome way or whatever. Like I would never speak like that, but that's more exciting to the like our quick to react brains than like, here's a 10-step method to succeeding in the world of art and design or whatever.
Yeah. And you really have to, I would imagine, like learn to sort of like not bury the content, but to make sure like you're given like a something to anticipate in the video where the person's like, oh, if I keep watching this video, I'll finally learn that little nugget that I've been looking for. And not like, you know, if it's a 60-minute long video and in the first 3 you're like, oh, it's just if you go to like format and whatever in Photoshop, it'll do it. Like you're probably not going to get many people sticking around for the full 60.
100%. So out of like the different, I guess, revenue streams or whatever you have from like boring friends or like you as artist or designer, what is like kind of the pie look like between like content stuff, selling products, your freelance business, and like whatever other things you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think it pretty much just comes down to either like client business or like me selling apparel, like running the online store. I'd say it's something like, wonder whether I should like articulate it in terms of like revenue or terms of like time spent. But like, I would say ultimately it probably comes down to something like 80-20 in favor of doing the client work and stuff like that. Like I mostly end up treating the online store stuff as just the like thing that I do in between, you know, doing all this stuff where I, like, you know, I'm like actually working for other people or I'm making art for myself or whatever. Like I really enjoy doing the apparel stuff. Like I really like making stuff that like primarily that like I get to wear because like I'm just making stuff that I would throw on or whatever. But like, you know, I enjoy like having that sort of like connection with people. Something about like making you know, a piece of clothing or a piece of art that someone would like wear around on their body or like throw up on their wall or something like that is like pretty cool feeling. Shipping stuff fucking sucks all day long. And like, I try so hard to be someone who like does that stuff right away, but man, it's like, I really drag my feet to get stuff shipped because I do it all on my own. And it's hard to carve out, you know, time in a day to do like literally one of your most like boring tasks. So
for real, that's why I shut down my like or maybe hiatus, I'll call it, like on my print store for the time being, because I hate doing that so much that it wasn't even doing bad. Like the fact that I was selling stuff was bothering me because then I had to do it, and I was like, what's the trade-off between that?
I don't want to feel stressful that I see like an order come into my shop.
You know what I mean? I was like, fuck, someone ordered.
Be like, okay, well, that means I'm going to have to lug this box up from my basement and like throw this thing into a tube and go to the post office and whatever. It's better when I like, you know, if I do like a drop or something, I can do everything in one batch. Then I can just kind of plug away. I can like dedicate like a day to like shipping everything out or whatever. Sure. But you know, that stuff has to get like put away eventually. I just do this shit at like my kitchen table when I'm shipping stuff out.
Like higher risk, higher reward kind of, because if the drop does bad, you're like, fuck, I got all this shit.
Well, I mean, I pretty much only operate on like drops right now too, right? Like, so I just get everything ordered in like a huge batch, and then whatever sells. So, you know, I try to anticipate what it's going to hit, but it's like, it's always just guesswork. And like, again, comes down to like, you know, did social media really pick it up? And like, I got a bunch of sales from that. Like a couple months ago, I made this like super niche t-shirt. I like wasn't even gonna like advertise it on my Boring Friends account like at all, because it was just for like a super niche thing about the general manager of my favorite hockey team. Like really, really, like I was like, 11 people on Twitter, which I don't use, are going to order this. I'll send it all out to them. I'll have one for myself. It'll be this funny little joke. And I sold 200 fucking t-shirts. And then all of a sudden, my week was like, you have to ship 200 t-shirts.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
crazy.
It takes forever to do that stuff.
Oh yeah, what kind of stuff do you mainly work on like in your freelance business? Like what are the kind of clients and stuff that you're doing? Because I mostly only see your like personal art and stuff online.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like as you probably know with like any of the freelance stuff, it's kind of like you make it and then you get to actually show people like often like a full year later or something
when you don't like it anymore.
Yeah, which you know, kills you or I who are like impulsive and need to like put stuff out either, like the minute it's finished. But it's kind of a wide spectrum. Like it all ends up just being sort of like branding, illustration, logo, graphic design type of stuff. A lot of people hit me up for like merch, so they'll want like a t-shirt made or a tote bag or something for like a line of that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's for like a logo, sometimes it's for like more of a full brand package.
One of the last, I guess two last things I wanted to ask you. One, I remember, so this kind of goes hand in hand with like putting yourself out there and like content and stuff. I remember at one point, maybe 6 months ago or something, you were like in like some little like drama and getting some kind of like backlash from whatever, like some kind of political opinions and stuff online. How like how does that like affect you, and are you able to kind of remove yourself from that without getting too like upset or anything like that?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it really like affects me on any like deep or personal level with that type of thing. Like the thing you're talking about was like last winter, there was like a huge like trucker convoy.
Okay. Yeah. Ottawa, that's where
I'm from. And there were a bunch of like, a bunch of real freedom heroes, like taking over the city and like, you know, assaulting people and like literally going into like, you know, homeless shelters and like demanding that they be given food from like homeless people. It was a whole mess, and it was happening in my whole town. And I got like, I think that's the thing with like how I treat the Boring Friends account too, is like, I'll just kind of say what's like on my mind. Like, like I'm not really gonna sort of pull stuff back because like I'm worried that people will like know where I stand politically or whatever. Like I know where I stand politically. I'm like comfortable in my opinions on those types of things. So when I saw that stuff, I was like pretty fired up. Like I have like real life friends who still live there and felt like unsafe leaving their homes because a bunch of lunatics were like roaming the streets. So, you know, posted about it a bunch, was probably not saying some very nice things about some people who I had strong opinions about. And so, you know, I got some of that back in the form of like mean DMs or whatever. But like, honestly, like, I don't think there was anything people could have like sent to me defending that type of thing and lashing out against me where I'd be like, oh, like maybe they're right. Like maybe I am an asshole, or like not even like that they think I'm an asshole, but like, you know, that like it's like people who were offended by that would like make fun of my art or like whatever. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I know that that's not what we're arguing about. So like, who gives a shit? I would be way more hurt by someone who just, you know, someone who likes art and like follows people online and like posted on my thing being like, oh, this is actually a little bit derivative, or like, this is like, you know, your line work here is a little sloppy. I'd be like, that would sideline me for a day or whatever. But like, with those people and those types of things, it's like, I know where I stand on this stuff. I feel pretty secure in those beliefs. So if they lash out and like try and like harass me via DM or whatever, like honestly, most of it's pretty funny. Like sometimes you get impressed with the number of typos someone can fit into just like 140 characters or whatever. It's like, you know, you got to like take the piss out of people sometimes. Right.
And I cause like the double-edged sword to like, the more I expose myself online, the more opportunity I provide for like criticism or whatever. And especially when you try to like, just sometimes I'm not even thinking it's like controversial. And I guess what I like said is within this niche, like little design thing or whatever. And I always try to question though, like the source whenever I get criticized. Cause it's like, you know, someone I respect saying like, yeah, like you said, maybe saying like this ain't it or whatever. And I'd be a little more let down. But when it's like some guy that doesn't even have anything on their own account for them to be vulnerable and they're saying shit and they have no picture and no post, it's like, well, then this doesn't really matter because I don't even know what it is or anything, you know? Totally.
And like all that being said too, it's like, I don't want to make it sound like, you know, I just go on the internet and like say stuff to get people riled up. And I'm like plugging my ears and being like, I don't care about your opinion. And I'm just trying to be like subversive or get a rise out of people or whatever. Like I'm also very like very in tune with, you know, if someone brings up being like, hey, I don't know about like this, or like maybe let's talk more about, you know, this opinion on that, or like, have you thought about this way or whatever? Like, you know, I'm open to learning new things and to talking to people. And when it is people who are, you know, say like on the essentially the same side as me in a certain like whatever political spectrum or conversation or whatever, being like, hey, just a heads up, like this was a little like off key or like whatever, like, you know, I take those things to heart and I think about them and whatever. It's more just like literal internet harassment from a bunch of lunatics, you know, terrorizing people in my hometown. Don't really give a shit. I don't know if I'll ever give a shit.
Yeah. That's like what I was getting at. It's real important to like really, you know, figure out what the like intention is and stuff. Cause like some people are just genuinely like trying to upset you, and other people are maybe offering a quality opinion and it just maybe like delivered in the not the nicest way or whatever. But on a more positive note, I wanted to ask you lastly about what's up with this like office hours thing you've been doing, and how has that been, and what are kind of some of your experiences with that?
It's been great. Like I'm trying to think of like exactly the like how behind how it started, but I started it last winter, just sort of like dead of like, I think like January or February during like our second COVID winter, where like everyone's just kind of like closed up indoors and fucking bummed out. And like, I don't know, I probably ran out of like sci-fi to read or video games to play or
COVID,
like whatever.
the sequel.
Yeah, but like, you know, I live on my own in this place, so it's like I didn't get to like see people all that often either. And I knew like I couldn't also be the only one who just would love to shoot the shit with like whoever. And like, you know, I get enough messages now, you know, into my Instagram like message box of just people either like asking for a certain bit of advice or like direction or how I did whatever. And it can be really tough to like get back to everyone. Like I literally can't, but I just figured, you know, if I open it up to just have a chat with people and keep them pretty short, then like, you know, trying to like do it all with a bit of an asterisk, being like, I have no idea whether I'll be able to give you good advice. Like, so what comes with me saying literally ask me about anything is that like sometimes I'm going to have no clue, or sometimes I'll just be winging it or whatever, but really just trying to open it up as a like, you know, I've opened up 6 or 8 slots on whatever day, first come, first serve, and then just sit down and like have a chat with people. I would say like 90% of them are, you know, graphic design related, illustration related, whatever, creative industry related. A lot of people who are like, you know, soon to be fresh out of school and they want to know what to do next, or like they want to quit their job and go freelance. So what happens next? They're like, you know, so I'm always down to have a quick 15 and talk about whatever is like most pressing on their mind. And then like some people literally just want to like have a chat, or like just be like, hey, what's up? It's cool to talk, something along those lines, which like also great. Like I leave it open to all those types of things, but it's been cool. Like I would say not a single bad experience with anyone I've spoken to. Like everyone's there for the right reasons. Everyone's like very appreciative to just like have some time to chat with someone. Like I think I was worried when I started it, because I'll carve out like, how long do I do at a time? Like 2 or 3 hours out of an afternoon to put one of these together. And I'll do like 15-minute time slots with like a couple minutes in between. And I think I was worried that it would be like, you know, that's a lot of talking for like 2 or 3 hours. Then it's like, you know, that's a lot of energy to like output into something, especially when I have other things to do. But like, I think I kind of found that it's like, I think like I get as much out of it as I put into it. Like it can be hard to like actually make time for it when I have other stuff going on, but like I don't finish it being like, oh man, like I'm like toast. I can't do anything for the rest of the day. Like a lot of it, like, I don't know. I think it just taps into the idea that it just feels good to like talk to other people and to shoot the shit, and ultimately feels good to like, if someone has a question that they've been like desperately searching for the answer to, and you happen to have that answer for them, like it feels good to be the guy to like provide that answer for them as well. So like I love doing them. Like I squeeze them in when I can. I was going through a minute where I was doing them every like week or 2 weeks, which is cool, but like I've just been way too busy to even possibly do that lately. So usually if I just have a week where I can picture an afternoon actually working for me, to book people in, then I'll do it. But it's like, it's been great. It's like, it's just cool to chat with people, and I have no regrets about starting it up.
Oh yeah. It's good that it's like equally, you know, restorative as you're expending the energy. Cause I feel the same way about this. Like I haven't necessarily had any like bad calls with people doing this, but so like I feel good and like I like the connection and stuff, but then there is a part of me where I'm like, talking like this exhausts me more than like a whole work day, it seems like sometimes.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
the energy.
it's still a lot of talking, and it's still like, it's not the type of conversation where you can just sort of like phase in and phase out and be distracted. Like you're not just getting a beer with a friend or whatever. It's
right.
like, you know, you have to be engaged and you have to have stuff to talk about. And like, you know, you're doing it under the understanding that people are going to listen to what you say. So you have to at least be on, you know, that takes a certain degree of energy. And then on the other end of it too, you still got to like splice everything together and put it out there on the internet.
Right. Yeah. There's like me, which is probably at the lowest energy as like a normal person. And then like the podcast of me is somewhere in the middle, because I don't want it to be, I can't be overly on for like this long. And then the video stuff is like the most on I can possibly be, which is still like nothing compared to how other people are able to like turn it on and like yell into the mic or whatever.
Yeah. I like, despite having, you know, in the last year and whatever started to do any of the, you know, the video stuff and the talking to the camera stuff, like I don't think I have it in me to do the like step outside of my personality and be this like really, I mean, I think I'm an enthusiastic person in general, but I don't think I have like the zaniness that comes with like being a certain type of like, you know, social media influencer or YouTube star or whatever. Like, you know, I can be a little more alive, a little more like chatty, but I don't think my voice is going to like start jumping all over the place. And like, I don't think I can.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, shit. I just wanted to say to end this, like, thank you again for coming on. And it was great to finally meet you and sit down and chat and everything, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. This has been great. I've been, you know, following the YouTube and the podcast for a minute. So it's been cool to come and see you in the virtual flesh.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody. And if you want to check out more of Ben's stuff, you can go online on TikTok and Instagram and his website, Boring Friends. And we'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.
See you guys.